Welcome to Spurs Version TV. Good evening to all you fans out there from uh Asia, and of course, good afternoon, all you guys from Europe, and especially from the UK's, and then of course, morning, good morning to all you guys in the Americas, right? Especially from Canada, from where my brother Brian Daigle is, right? Today we're doing the show. Hopefully, some guests will be joining us soon. Some of them are a bit tied up at the moment. Let's see whether we can get some people on. Right, let's see get some people on. But of course, today's show, of course, we're talking about the review of all the games that happened on game week 12. Right, the scores are quite simple. Right, so let's go through some. Of course, Spurs lost to Newcastle at home. Our first home loss after 8 games, after 8 wins, if I'm not mistaken, straight home wins and all that. But of course, the things that's been happening around, and after the Manchester United loss, a lot of Spurs fans are actually having a major meltdown now. A lot of things flying around about Conte, about our squad, and especially our owners, right? So, but of course, for what you know that I will always blame our owners, right? And they have to be responsible. They should take responsibility for what's been happening to our club. And of course, we didn't take advantage of the scores around us, like Chelsea drawing with Manchester United. We couldn't pull further away, and of course, Liverpool losing to Nottingham Forest. That's one of the surprise, how you call, results of the weekend, right? And of course, Southampton drawing with Arsenal. We could have made some ground on Arsenal if we did beat Manchester United, but too bad we didn't. Right, and of course, we won't talk about M City. M City is always M City, right? They'll keep on chugging along, getting in the scores and winning the games, right? But of course, let's get down to the game at the moment now. Since I'm a Spurs fan, let's talk about the Spurs game. Right, I did a watch along with a couple of Newcastle fans from Malaysia. It was fun, right? Thanks to Julian and of course Johan. Johan then fell asleep while watching the game. Of course, they won. They were happy, right? Mistakes from Loris. I guess both of the mistakes also was from Loris, and of course, our defense was actually non-existent during that game. Non-existent. The through ball, it just went past, flew over everybody's head, past Dyer, and just Loris just came charging out, right? And bumping into Callum Wilson, and somehow another Dyer was supposed to get back to defend the goal line, but he didn't. Right, he just stood there, the penalty spot, and the ball just floated over his head for the first goal. And of course, the second goal by Newcastle was more or less, we blame Loris again. The ball out from the back, he tried to chip it to us, chip it to or pass it to Sessegnon, where Sessegnon lost the ball. Miron got it, Skin Langley put it under Loris, and it was 2-0, right? But we did start brightly, right? We had most of the chances. Son should have scored, right, early in the game, but he didn't. But I guess that's how football is. If you don't score first, then the advantage goes to the opponent, and our hits went down after the first goal, which shouldn't have happened. Shouldn't have happened, right? But what I think now is that the injuries that we've been having is taking a toll on I think our squad, right? Since we had this great transfer window, right? And when we look back at it now, how great is it? How great is it, right? Conte never got the players he wanted. I think most of the players that he needed, he didn't get. And now we're stuck in this position. And of course, next thing is that we are going to face Sporting Lisbon tomorrow, right? At home. And hopefully we can get a result there, right? It's a big hopefully there now, right? With all the injuries coming up. And of course, to look further back against Manchester United at Old Trafford, and we didn't turn up there either. Sad to say, we didn't turn up there either, right? Since whatever happened there, I guess maybe that has hit the confidence of our squad, right? And with the injuries coming in, that didn't help either. That didn't help either. So at the moment, we are stuck in this position now. So I guess we will just have to trot on, right? Until I guess the World Cup break is coming up soon, somewhere I think in the first week of November, and that is about 2 weeks time from now. So let's see. There's the I think about 4 or 5 more games to go on before that happens, and then after the World Cup, then I guess it's back to Premier League again. And when Jan transfer window comes around, let's see whether our brilliant businessman chairman will actually buy some players to strengthen our squad, right? And if by then we are still in and about the top 4 places, that will be considered quite a achievement for Conte at the moment. Achievement for Conte at the moment, right? With the squad depth that he has, right? As we were chasing the game, of course, don't forget in the second half we did get quite an early goal back, right? With Harry Kane's header, right? Surprisingly, Harry Kane is having one of his best seasons at the moment in goal scoring, right? He scored 10 to date, right? That is one of I think he's doing very well there, right? Of course, with Haaland going on a rampage, that shadows what Harry Kane is doing, right? And at the moment, I thought that if we did get an early goal, maybe we could squeeze out an equalizer or maybe squeeze out a win. But we look at our bench. What attacking options do we have to look at it? What attacking options did we have? Right now, do we have? Did we have? We turned around. We brought on Mora, right, and Perisic, which didn't do much help either. And of course, in the last 10 minutes or so, we brought on 2 defensive players. Yeah, 2 defensive players, right? So I'm not sure what we can say about our squad depth. Right? What squad depth do we have, right, to move on? And apart from that, we'll be going into the Champions League games, right? So, with some guests who come on, we'll be delving into that Champions League games that is coming on, right? But at the moment, we are stuck in this position with what we have, and I guess Conte will have to come up with a certain kind of a plan, right, or scheme, right, how to bring us through to a few next games that we have to go through, right? At the moment now, let me go through and let me have a look. Let's see what our games are going to be coming in the future, right? And of course, at the moment now, we'll be looking against Sporting Lisbon is the first one that we're going to look at, right? Then after that, on Saturday, we're playing Bournemouth, right? We'll be playing Bournemouth on Saturday. After this, we'll end our October run. And to tell the truth, after October run, then we'll be playing Marseille, and of course Sunday. Okay, Sunday is going to be interesting, right? Maybe I'll do a watch along on Sunday, right? Sunday will be interesting because 6th of November on Sunday, we'll be playing Liverpool at home. That will be interesting. Liverpool at home. Then, of course, after that, we'll be taking on Nottingham Forest in the EFL Cup on Wednesday night, right? And then after that, we'll be playing against, before the World Cup break comes, right? On the Saturday, 12th of November, we'll be playing Leeds. So I guess how many points can we gain from now until the World Cup break, right? Since then, Bournemouth away, will it be an easy game? Liverpool at home, I don't think it'll be an easy game, and Leeds at home. I guess there should be at least 6 points in the back there, right? 6 to 7 points in the back there. But with what's been happening to our squad, it's getting thinner by the day, right? And as the World Cup looms closer, the dates looms closer. I got a funny feeling that our players are slowly switching off. Of course, most of our world-class players will be involved in the World Cup, and let's hope we will get through that period of time unscathed. But being a Spurs fan and being Tottenham Hotspur, I guess that will never happen. That hardly ever happens. There'll be more drama to come along. I guess tonight, I think tomorrow night, that will be the important game that's coming up against Sporting Lisbon, right? If we win that game, that more or less secures our Champions League progress into the second round, right? Into the round of last 16. right, into the second round, right? So if we don't, then we will be more or less reliant on a game away at Marseille, which that I guess will be a very, very dangerous game to play, right? At Marseille. Marseille seems to be very strong now. They're coming back in the groove, right? And tomorrow's game against Sporting Lisbon, I hear that Lisbon has got a lot of suspension problems, right, with red cards and yellow cards and all that. That should give us the advantage. But as I keep saying that somehow or another, if we keep sticking with playing Emerson Royale, it's like we're playing with 10 men most of the time. But of course, against the game against Newcastle, we can't blame Royal much for anything because most of the mistakes all came from Maurice. And of course, also, he wasn't the worst player on the pitch on that day, right? He wasn't the worst player on the pitch, but collectively, somehow or another, we lacked energy, right? Somehow or another, after losing Decky and now Romero and now Hoybier, right? And of course, with Charlison, basically, we've just lost like another 30% of our power, right? It's somehow or another we're running on low battery at the moment, right? And whether when we're going to get a recharge, I'm not sure. Maybe the World Cup comes along, we'll get a recharge there, or maybe it'll make it worse, right? That's hard to say because we do have a few players going off to the World Cup, and just hope they come back unscathed, right? And let's see whether that happens, right? But being Spurs, it hardly ever will be, how to say, positive for us, right? But as we can see now, uh, things that's been going, the total Spurs fan base now is totally divided, right? There's of course the camp that wants Conte out, right? And then of course there is the camp that says that we still need to stick with the manager, right? And hope that our owners back him and give him time to actually build a proper squad to challenge for trophies, right? And it comes down to trophies again. The next thing, of course, let's see whether we will be still in the EFL Cup, which is called the Carabao Cup now, right? Whether we will still be in the Carabao Cup in called November 12th, right? If we lose to Nottingham Forest, then of course we'll be out of Carabao Cup. But if we do beat Nottingham Forest, we will still be in the running for the Carabao Cup, right? And maybe later on, then we'll be talking about the FA Cup run, whether we can FA Cup run. Maybe these are the two cups that we more or less have to go for, right, this season, right? And of course, we are not in the title challenge, guys. Please be a bit realistic. We are not in the title challenge unless in January, Levy spends £200 million, bringing three top world class players for Conte to mold and bring us forward. I guess that will not happen at all, right? Because we already seen it. This summer transfer window was supposed to be our great big transfer window where we will get all the players Conte need, right, to bring us to the next level since we have a world class manager, right, and we've got at least three world class or four world class players with us in our squad. We need to build on that, and we didn't much build on anything, right? We didn't much build on anything, as we all know the players that we brought in, nearly eight players, which in the end more or less only two are starting or more or less playing, right? And now with Bissouma coming in, three is playing, right? But playing, being injured, in and out. What can I say, right? We've got sometimes it's sad to see. Sad to see. It's so sad to see when you're in such a situation where you look at your bench, what are your attacking options, right, to actually claw back the points, right? You've got Lucas Moura, Brian Hill as your attacking options. Beyond that, you're scratching your head and maybe Perisic, right, to do something. But none of these players have actually come good for us as a sub, right? But it is what it is. We have what we have. And of course, we have to move on with it. We have to move on with it. At the moment now, how you say, things look a bit doom and gloom, but of course, there's always doom and gloom in Spurs. There's always been, and I guess it will never end until either our owners wake up and actually do something about the football, right? Instead of always worrying about the money, right? and somehow or another they never realize. They still don't realize that actually football is the money, right? And if they don't invest in it, I guess we'll still be stuck in this conundrum. We'll still be stuck in this conundrum. At the moment, let's get back to the other games, right? Like I said, Liverpool had a shocking display at Nottingham Forest. They lost 1-0, but I didn't watch the match. But according to a lot of the what called rumblings out there, that Liverpool got lost by more, right? Maybe what we see at Liverpool now is like maybe their players are aging, right? Their midfield is not there, right? And they don't have the players to actually bring them forward, right? So that's one bonus for us. At least we can at least keep Liverpool at bay, right? At least the top four position. At least there's one open slot there. But we still have to worry because we have Newcastle United, right? Which we played them yesterday. Did we play them yesterday? No, we played them on Sunday. Yeah, today's sorry, getting my days mixed up, right? Getting my days. Today's Tuesday in Malaysia, and of course yesterday was Monday. Yeah, we played them on Sunday. Uh, they look very good. They're a good team. Eddie Howe, right? I still remember after the Jose Mourinho, Mason uh, debacle, 76 days without manager. I was shouting Howell in, right? Bring in Howell and give him a chance, right? But now in the end, we ended up with Nuno, and of course, we know what happened after with Nuno, right? And after Nuno, now we've got Conte, and Conte is supposed to be, right? As you can see, yeah, Antonio Conte just sitting next by me, right? Sitting next by me. I've got to change this thumbnail soon. I have to change this thumbnail soon. We brought in Conte. He brought us to the Champions League, right? So-called a mini miracle that what he did with the players that we have, right? And of course, in that way that we've been moving the progress at the moment now, we're getting an extension of a contract for Davis, which, to tell the truth, we should look for their replacements as soon as possible. And now we are even talking about an extension of contract for Dyer, right? So I don't understand what's wrong with Spurs. We like to keep our players for the long run, which do not produce for us, or they just like what Uh, Alex THFC says, Alex Davis says, oh, bang average, right? Why are we keeping all these bang average players in our squad with a world class manager is supposed to bring us to the next level, right? If you're bang average, oh, Conte has really had one over, going to be 1 year with these players, right? And if they still can't improve and they still can't focus, right, for the job in hand, why are they still here? That's my question. Why are they still here? Right. But we are where we are. But of course, what can we say furthermore about that is uh what can we say? Right? The performances throughout the season, this 12 past 12 games weren't brilliant, right? We've always sat back, absorb, and try to counter, but it wasn't pretty, right? And it still isn't pretty, right? But we're still getting results. Some of us are saying we're sitting third in the league, right? Only about how many points, right? 5 points ahead, 5 points behind, 5 points behind the leaders or something like that. 4 or 5 points behind the leaders. Let me have a look. How many points are we behind the leaders? Have a look. Do we have where to see where? Right, right. Let me go to the table. Yeah. How many points are we behind Arsenal? Uh, we're 5 points behind Arsenal, but of course we played one game in hand, right? But of course the Arsenal game in hand is of course against M City, right? And we're 1 point behind M City, right? Sorry, we're 3 points behind M City. We're 3 points behind M City at the moment, right? And of course Newcastle is 2 points below us, right? And of course Newcastle looks more of a threat at the moment. But don't forget Chelsea and of course Manchester United are sitting in the fifth and sixth. They have a game in hand, and their Chelsea's also 2 points behind us, and of course, Manchester United is of course 3 points behind us, right? And how the league looks now is our position in the league actually a false position because there has been a lot of statistics out there to show that we are actually at the bottom, I think, of a lot of the stats that we have now at the moment, right? Close to the bottom, right? On our positionings, right? Of what I call uh, possession and our let me get that information out. Right, let me see whether I can get that information out. We can I get find that information? Is it not here or is it here? Let me see. Let me see. Is it this one? All right. At the moment now, possession one. Right, possession one. In the middle third, we're sitting 14. Right, possession one. In the final third, we're sitting 18. Right, high turnovers, we're sitting 16. Duels one, we're sitting 16. Starting distance, we're sitting 17. Final third passes attempt, we're sitting 15. Fewer shots faced, we're sitting 18. Oh, hi Amir, big up Amir. Right. If you're free, you want to join me, Amir, I'll throw the link into the chats, right? If you're still around. Right, let me send out the link. Maybe Brian Daigle will be joining us later. Maybe a couple of Arsenal fans will be joining us later too. Right, let me copy this, copy, and then let me send this here. Paste. Anybody in the chat who want to join us can join us. Bobby K most probably be joining us later too. Right, and of course, what we're looking at, right? Final third passes attempt. We are actually 15th, right? And what else do we have? Fewer shots faced. My God, we're 18. That means we've had 173 shots at us at the moment. That is dangerously bad. But possession percentage, we are 12. And don't forget, we're top three at the moment, right? If things were worse, we could be at the bottom three at the moment. But right, okay, Amir, thanks. Next time, catch up with you next time too, right? If to tell the truth, if things were worse, we could be actually at the bottom, around in the bottom three of the league, but we're top three. The reflections do not actually reflect our stats don't reflect our position. So the only thing my biggest fear at the moment now, right? If once the stats reflect our position, we will start dropping down the table, right? And at the moment now, based on the league, if I'm not mistaken, we have got a Bournemouth game coming up. Then after the Bournemouth game, we have a Liverpool game. And of course, we have the Leeds game. If I'm not mistaken, that means we've got 3 more league games or so, 4 more league games or so. Let me check again. What are the league games do we have? All right, we've got one against Bournemouth. Then, of course, we've got Liverpool. And then we've got Leeds. Yeah, 3 more league games. And of course, in these 3 league games at the moment, if we don't perform, right, and we don't get the points onto the board, we will be dropping out of the top 4. I can guarantee you that we will be dropping out of the top 4 because Chelsea and Manchester United will supersede us. They will supersede us. And as I see it at the moment now, with the squad depth that we have, right, and with the way Conte is looking at the moment, right, it doesn't look too good for us. It doesn't look too good for us. Coming back down to the part is where we are giving extension of contracts to Dyer, and of course, we already given one extension contract to Davis. My question is, why does our club keep all these players on, right? Why don't we at least try to sell them or just let the contract end and ask them to leave the club, and at the same time bring in a replacement for them? Why are we like that? We've been doing that for so many years, right? It's like, oh, is it because are we so sentimental about it that we can't get rid of the players that we bought in? Or is it just that, I don't know, our owners are trying to get silly money for these players, which they are not worth it? right? And not to say that most of the players that we got rid of in the summer, right? We didn't actually sell them, right? We still got Ndombele, right, on loan in Napoli, but at least Napoli is doing well at the moment, right? And Ndombele is contributing to Napoli. They are looking to buy him, right? We got Lo Celso, if I'm not mistaken. Lo Celso is in Villarreal, right? And Villarreal is not doing too well at the moment, right? And don't forget, Unai Emery has moved to Aston Villa, right? Unai Emery's moved to Aston Villa. So what's going to happen there, right? And of course, we got Regulon. I'm not sure where even Regulon is. I think Regulon now is in Valencia. Oh, sorry, Sevilla or Valencia, right? I haven't heard whether he's playing or not, right? And of course, not to say that we got Harry Winks. Harry Winks is in Sampdoria, and he hasn't even played one game for Sampdoria at the moment, right? And most probably we hear that Harry Winks is coming back. But with all these players not sold and they're coming back, right? What's going to happen in the summer next year? That's my question. But we don't look too far, right? January is coming up, right? Because with the World Cup coming up so fast, right? January is just around the corner too, because we're going to miss about another 30 days or so of the Premier League. Then we straight away be jumping in back into the, I think, 45 days or so, I think, if I'm not mistaken, nearly 45 days of the Premier League. Then we'll be jumping back into the Premier League, right? A couple of days, about a week after that, right? We're back. We're back in the January transfer window, right? Like what Amir says here, right? It's very simple. We can't buy quality players, so we can't get rid of the dead wood. I blame the bot for everything. Yes, Amir, of course, I blame the bot for everything too, right? Because we not only can't get rid of the dead wood, right? We keep dead wood. That's the weird word, worst part of the scenario is that why do we keep all these players that who are like I said, just average players, right? If we want to be a top club, right? A club that win things, right? We shouldn't be keeping players like that, right? Ben Davis should have gone. We should not have extended his contract, right? Maybe you extend his contract to be a squad player, right? And bring in a proper left center back, right? So, but we did, right? We brought in Langley, supposedly, right? And what did Langley do yesterday? He got skinned by Almiron, right? He got skinned by Almiron, right? But we still keep on Dyer. I don't understand what is the love with Dyer, right? Some kind of Dyer's got some kind of black magic potion or something, right? And then all the managers love him. They can't get rid of him, right? And they need him, right? And that's so scary at the moment. That's the scary part of it, right? That's the scariest part of it. We are stuck with players like that, right? Bang average players that can't bring us anywhere, right? And the worst part is at the moment now, then there's rumors now going around that Real Madrid is interested in Sonny, right? And with things that are going on with us at the moment in Spurs, right? If Real came in for Sonny in January, right, and paid some pretty nice dough for him, right, in January for Son, right, would Levy sell him, right? And if Levy sells Sonny, then what will happen to Conte, right? I'm sure Conte wouldn't want to sell Sonny. Then there'll be another big hoo-ha there, and let's see what happens. To me, I mean, honestly, right, uh, I'm just waiting for Conte to walk. That's all. I'm just waiting for Conte to walk, right? As I see it, right? Okay, I got Keshav coming in now. Let me see you, Keshav. You have the StreamYard link, right? Okay, join us now, Keshav. I can bring you in anytime, right? You have the StreamYard link. I've sent it out to you, right? Keshav is a West Ham fan, and he's been on the show a couple of times, right? We've been talking about it that time when he was on, West Ham was actually in the relegation, more or less in the relegation zone, but West Ham has actually fought their way out of the relegation zone, right? West Ham has actually fought their way out of the relegation zone, right? And let me bring in Keshav. It's on. Hi,
I,
Keshav. Yeah, I guess you're happy, right?
to say, yeah,
Yeah, yeah. You guys fought your way up back to what?
10th.
Seven or 10th? 10th. Yeah, that's good, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I think
10th,
yesterday,
right?
before the game, we were 17th place. Gosh, that was a horrific
Yeah,
position to be in. But I, because when I was watching the game today, and I thought not the most convincing performance, but what I saw was a lot of things need to be improved on because you know, give have to give credit to Bournemouth because I watched the game and some people will say that yeah we got our luck through it and to be honest there's a lot of VAR decisions that were made silly and some of the decisions they made were wrong
Mm,
because example the first goal Zuma scored I thought that was a handball given by Kerr and then the penalty decision for Bournemouth was not given and our penalty was given. So there's a lot of decisions that went our way, and there was a bit of luck in that. But overall, in terms of the way we played, first half I thought we looked good. We played good football. We were on the front foot. We created a lot of chances. But then in the second half, it didn't seem like what we were. Bournemouth again, they lost 9-0 to Liverpool, and when Scott Parker was sacked, we all thought, what type of play they would have, and to be honest, they play really good football. It's not like they don't. And when I saw how Bournemouth plays, I was very impressed because you see they don't have the best players. They have Solanke and Tavernier and all these players who are probably championship, but they're able to play in a much more entertaining way. When you look at us, it's like the of the second half. We played too defensive. We were very deep, and I always stress this that West Ham under Moyes, we play defensive football. I know I don't like it, Ari, and I've said it many times. I don't like defensive football. And Moyes is not a type of manager who goes and press teams because number one, we don't know how to press teams well. We only press when we need to. We go on the counter attack, and it's like whenever we scored this, at least the second goal yesterday, it's like we played too deep. And I'm thinking, we have these quality players and we're not doing anything with it. Yes, I know Pakata's currently out and Cornet is out, but
mm,
as a club like us, we should be able to attack, and play good football. But what I see is that we don't have initiative to go and play that every time, be on the front foot, play good football. We don't do that. It's like if you see the recent games that when the opposition team scores, we immediately go another gear to try and get the first goal. That's not what we should do. What we should do is play 90 minutes on the front foot with bundles of energy. But right now okay, yeah, happy with the win, but overall performance is not good. I know
mm.
we're 10th right now, but if you look at the likes of Leicester, um, the number of points from 10th to 17th is it's small margins.
Averaging
And
about
if
two wins, right? Two six
yes,
points or so, then you drop back down. But
yeah,
Kesha, before that, just like to wish you a happy Diwali.
yes, thank you.
Yeah, happy. Wish you a happy Diwali, right? Being Malaysians, right? We all celebrate everything, lah. Don't care one, lah.
Yeah.
That's but to tell the truth, what you've been describing, right? You're actually describing Spurs, right? We've been, you're actually describing Spurs, right? In that way, right?
Mm,
What Conte has been doing. But the
mm,
other thing is that we've been getting the results consistently until recently. We've lost two games in a row, one to Manchester
mm,
United, and of course recently to Newcastle at home, right? We weren't beaten at home. We have not lost at home. We even didn't draw at home
yeah.
for the past, I think, let's say 4 or 5 this season's Premier League game, right? We've beaten teams and somehow or other been able to squeeze out the results. But like yesterday, you were seeing, like, I think it has a lot to do, right, with Europe. You keep
Mm,
forgetting you're playing a Bournemouth team that plays one game a week, right?
mm,
With teams like us, right, we are playing in Europe. Sometimes you're playing up to
mm,
3 games a week. Somehow
yeah.
the cycle is weird, right? We play about 3 games a week, 2 or 3 games a week, right? That is actually, you can
Yeah.
see, that's why the manager has to take into account the tiredness, right? And come the other part is that you're talking about injuries. You look at what happened to Spurs yesterday. In the beginning, when we played Manchester United, we lost Richarlison and we lost Decky, right?
Mm,
Went to MU, right? Played like, I don't know what to say, like, it wouldn't be a nice language, right?
mm,
Played like a cat. Let's say that.
mm,
Right? Played like a cat, right? And we were smacked left, right, and center. And
mm,
luckily we weren't battered because the heroics of Loris,
mm,
right? Then we come to Sunday's game. Okay,
Mm.
we go back to a 3-5-2. We were
Mm.
upbeat. We're gonna beat Newcastle. Blah blah blah. We dominated. Not say we dominated. Like, we had the fair chances in the first 30 minutes.
Mm.
Right. Son should have scored one on
Yep.
one with Nick Pope, the true ball. Right. Somehow or another he dinked it. Nick Pope, I give
Mm.
kudos to him. Like, he saved it. If he
Yep.
blasted that one, he might have gone in. You get him, see, not? But he didn't.
Yep.
He dinked it. Yep. It is what it is. It didn't go in. But what Newcastle did is that one long through ball, right, over the top,
Mm.
and then Dyer is ball watching. Callum
Mm.
Wilson runs through, and Lloris charges out, right,
Mm.
for whatever reason, right, and then falls onto the ground. And stupid Dyer, right, instead of going and defend the goal line, he
Mm.
stands in the 6-yard box and let the ball flies over his head.
Mm.
So, what are you gonna say? I can't say anything,
Mm.
right? And after that, our heads drop,
Yep.
our energy levels drop, everything drop. Lloris kicks out, try to place out from the back, chips to Sessignon, and come on, Sessignon ain't the tallest player in the pitch, loses the ball falls to Almiron skins Langley, puts it under Lloris. So it's 2-0. And from then on, you know, we just couldn't recover, right? Somehow or another, and then what happens is that we get that the goal that we thought if we get it early, right, there's a chance of at least coming back. No, we get that goal early, right? Because it wasn't late, it was like 58 minutes or so. Harry Kane scores that goal, right? And then of course it took a VAR like 50
Mm.
years to decide whether it was a goal or not, lah.
Mm.
The look left, right, center, who did touch, who didn't touch, and all that,
Mm.
right? We get the goal, right? And from then we thought that okay, we can go up another gear, right, to at least try to get the equalizer, correct? But then
Yep.
when you look at your bench, who do you have, right? We are
Mm.
Conte is looking at the bench. Who do I bring on? We bring on
Mm.
Mora, right? He's good at bringing the
Mm.
ball, running with the ball, right, and goes nowhere, right?
Yep.
We bring on Perisic, and Perisic, to tell the truth, right, I think he's been quite a disappointment at the moment. He did have a few chances, lah, okay,
Mm.
but still disappointment, right? But after that, who else could we bring on? He didn't bring on Brian Hill. He didn't bring on Jet Spence. He turns
Yep.
around and bring on another 2 defenders. So what can I say?
Mm.
Right. And then after the press conference, he comes and said, at least they deserve a draw and all that. I was going, what? Okay. He's going to say I want to blame Conte. I mean, sometimes
Mm.
the manager does have to take some responsibility. Like, he is the manager, right? But I
Yep.
also do have to blame higher up people saying that we are supposed to have this great summer window, right? Right? Why didn't we go and get Paqueta? Why did West Ham get Paqueta? Right? We could have gotten Paqueta if we want to spend the money, right? Paqueta would have loved to come to Spurs instead of go to West Ham. We'd be playing Champions League. You get what I'm saying? It gives us a different option in the midfield. Okay. And of course, not to say that we spent 60 million pounds or let's say 50 lah. It'll become 60 if Richarlison meets his what called targets and all that. If we spend 50 million pounds on Richarlison and now he's injured, right?
Mm.
And we got no attacking options. Zero attacking options. Have you actually watched Brian Hill play?
No.
Oh, you watch Brian Hill play, you'll laugh, right? He bounces off players. He carry the ball, then when he runs into a player, he bounces off them, and then he loses the ball. You see, so scrawny, you understand, not? Right? And then they say if the wind blows too hard to one side, he'll float to the other side, you see. That is the problem in Brian Hill.
Mm.
He does have tactical skills. He does have it. It's not say he doesn't. He can dribble. He can run with the ball, right? He shows some movement, some brilliance, and all that, right? But the only thing is that he needs to bulk up, right? Because he falls off the ball too easily. He runs into a player, right? He will just he's not being tripped. He actually just if he bumps into a player, he will just bounce back. That's how weak he is. So we don't have that option. And the thing is that I'm not sure whether is that maybe was Conte more focused on the Champions League game coming up tomorrow against Sporting Lisbon at home, right? If he's thinking in that kind of sorts, right, where is he going to put us? Because our squad is getting thinner and thinner. And after the press conference he's giving now, he's saying that his biggest fear is that more injuries. You understand? right? At the moment, we against Manchester City, against Newcastle, we lost another two more players, right? Højbjerg, okay. Oh, it was we lost Højbjerg, and who else did we lose? And then I think we lost Højbjerg and somebody else. I can't even remember already lah. It was so depressing that way lah. And we lost Højbjerg, and then in the end he had to play something like Skip, Bissouma, and Bentancur, right, in the midfield. So that's what we had in the end of the day, right? But like I was saying, 2 weeks ago or 2 or 3 weeks ago when you first came on the show, right? West Ham was sitting in the relegation zone. Remember, I told you guys have the quality to actually climb back up. So you see, 2 or 3 wins after that, you are back up to 10th, right? But like you were saying, like if you lose 2 games in a row and people win 2 games in a row, you drop back down to the 17. So that's a bit harrowing, lah. But like I've also been saying, I think Europe is taking a toll on a lot of the teams involved in Europe, because if you don't have your squad, right, I don't think you'll be able. You're not tahan, that's all. And you say like Liverpool, oh, luckily Harry didn't join today. I don't know, maybe Harry nowadays, I don't know. Message him, he don't want to join. Right. Liverpool, right, losing to Nottingham Forest. I mean, away lah, okay, but the performance was bad too, right? They didn't put up performance because they said that Nottingham Forest had the better chances to take that game at least 2-3-0 or something like that. But I didn't watch the game, I don't know lah, right? But don't forget, Liverpool is involved in the Champions League too. So I guess it comes down now, right? If your squad depth isn't there, and if you don't have the players that you can rotate, right, to come in, there's only a certain way you can play. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's only a certain way you can play. At the moment, I'm not sure about Arsenal and MU, because Chelsea and the MU game. Did you watch the Chelsea MU game?
No, I didn't watch. No.
You know what? The Chelsea MU game, is the typical Chelsea MU game lah. 0-0, 0-0 draw. Boring. Then all of a sudden Chelsea score, right? Then then the 94th minute, all of a sudden Casemiro scores one. So, and it's a 1-1 draw. But you can see that these teams, when they are playing, both teams are at the midweek level, right? The level of the football, the intensity, the speed, and all that is a bit, tempered. It's a bit lower. I know. Well, of course, don't compare Manchester City, lah, right? Manchester City has got 22 players who can play, you can put out and can play everybody. Right? That's how I see it, lah. But then, of course, you got Arsenal. Who did Arsenal play? And then you see Arsenal play Southampton, same thing, right? Arsenal. Okay. Okay, just finished work. Jamie, are you jumping on, Jamie? Have a great show. I'm not sure whether he's going to jump off. Right. Yeah. So you see Arsenal, the same thing. So I guess the weird results are coming out. So, Arsenal couldn't beat Southampton also. They were leading, if I'm not mistaken, right? And then I heard there were a few dubious positions lah. And of course, like you said, this year VAR has been very subjective lah.
Yeah.
Only I don't know what to say anymore lah. I thought it happens in Malaysia. VAR being subjective, right? So interpretation, like they were saying, like the interpretation of the MU game, there was a handball in the penalty, right, against MU, the game, and it wasn't given. I think, what was it? And Anthony's hand or something hand was up when somebody headed the ball, and Kane headed the ball back and touched him, and then they said it wasn't a handball. But then in another match, it was given as a handball, right? You get, so no consistency.
Yeah.
So we're coming down to my God. And of course, Jamie is saying Kesha's Malaysian. You keep saying yeah lah. We're both Malaysians here, man. So I will still use our Malaysian idioms, right? Right. And if he was from Sabah, I would go bar also. Jamie, right? But Kesha, I guess you being 10 now, you don't feel that secure still, but at least you're a bit happier than 2-3 weeks ago, right?
Yeah, very true. But what what I can say is that I mean, if you look at the beginning of the season, we didn't start very well, and I was hoping we could pick up a couple of wins starting from the Wolves game, and we did. And we started to gain some momentum. We played some good football, and the Liverpool game, we could have gotten something out of it. I thought we played well at times. We contained Liverpool into not letting them score many. I thought Nunes played very well in that game. Nunes could have scored what 2 or 3 goals, but what I can see is that I see a pattern every time we play, because we play as though we don't want to concede. Because if not mistaken, there was an interview Antonio did. I think it was with Talksport or some other podcast. He's talking about Moyes, and he is saying that the manager doesn't want us to concede in the first half.
Mm.
He wants us to keep defensive. He wants us to keep us tight and solid at the back. Okay, I'm fine with that. But then there are times when you have to play attacking against the sides that are bottom, like Bournemouth, Wolves. These are the types of sides where you need to show, your
I
impetus.
know, but Keshav, the problem with that is right. Is that these teams only play one game a week. You and I, we have to play 2 games a week. That's the things that Moyes maybe is taking into account, right? You don't have a squad that you can rotate like Manchester City rotate and all that, right? But hold on, let me bring on one more guest. He's an Arsenal fan. Money. Hey, happy Diwali, Money.
Right?
Thank you, sir. Thank you,
Happy
and
Diwali, money.
You
wishing.
catch up, right?
Hi, Keshav.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
hope you
yeah.
enjoyed the festivities as well.
Yeah,
Thank you.
of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, we're just talking about West Ham, right? Because
Mm,
Keshav came on to the show about 2 or 3 weeks ago. They were more or less in the relegation zone, but now they've moved up to 10. But Keshav, you were saying, right? You're about like 6 points away back into the relegation fight, but you're also 6 points away back into Europe. That's why this season, right, is weird. If you look at the
mm,
points, you're 14 now, right? Manchester United is 20 points, right? Fulham sitting in the Conference League's
mm,
position is 18 points. You see, so the points gap is weird, right? So
mm,
that's one thing is hard to say. And of course, money, Arsenal drawing with Southampton. What happened there?
What happened was that we faced a real test against a team with a fairly strong midfield and a decent defense, which stifled us every chance they could get. And we also started to realize that we were running on fumes the past few games, depending on moments of good fortune to win. And that just means that now we have to take a look at ourselves and see if we can improve ourselves. And this is one of the reasons why I keep telling people that we cannot allow ourselves to get hyped up over a few wins without realizing the good fortune involved and also acknowledging that we need to improve. Sadly, people just don't seem to be willing to learn their lessons. And interestingly enough, I was watching the West Ham Bournemouth game last night, and Keshav, I think you
mm,
might have something to say about this.
mm,
Um, West Ham, I'll say right now, were good value for the win. I mean, they obviously attacked a lot more than Bournemouth did,
mm,
and they were the ones who were forcing uh, both goalkeepers, Neto and Travers, into making some saves. Um, of course, there was a lot of controversy about the use of VAR. I
yeah,
suppose the penalty shout on second glance at it was probably the right decision because it did hit Zamura's hand. But
yeah,
with the first goal, there was also a lot of controversy about how
mm,
Kera was basically having his hands in a sort of a
yeah,
volleyball player's position, and the ball ended up hitting him on his upper arm, although some people might say it hit his chest. And
mm,
that sort of segues in some ways into the use of VAR and whether it has any use in the game.
mm,
I say that VAR has made the game a lot better. Technology always makes everything better. Cricket is a perfect example of that. I don't know if you follow cricket very much. You might
mm,
agree with that. But it's the people responsible for applying that technology who are not able to make it
mm.
work and who deserve all the criticism that they can get. I'd like to know what you think about that.
I agree, because when I saw the first goal, I completely thought it was handball and it shouldn't have stand. But this is the problem with referees nowadays, that they don't follow consistency. They lay it's sort of they favor a team over another. because I feel that happens a lot of times. They're not decisive in most of the games. You see one game where they give a penalty, another game they don't give a penalty. So there is no consistency. And what I want VR to do is give these referees post-match interviews after the game, because they don't do all this. We need to know what is their thinking behind why they make this VAR decision. Why do they give this penalty to for this team? Or so we understand. Okay, this is why they give the penalty. This is why they don't give the penalty. It's sometimes they want to cover the fact that VAR has helped them. I remember, I think our Antonio has given us a statement saying that it seems that VAR has sort of covered the fact that they can referees can rely so much on VAR to help them when they don't make their own judgment of it on the pitch, rather than relying technology to help them at the most of its benefit. So I agree the first goal shouldn't have stand. Um, Bournemouth should have been given a penalty, and I honestly I thought it should have been 1-1, but unfortunately we got the win, and we need some luck along the way. So yeah.
I think it's simple as that. Somehow or another, right? VAR and all this technology, right, should be used in an objective sense. But somehow or another, the interpretation and whatever's happened, right, they've actually turned it into a subjective kind of scenario. So I remember the first season when we started using VAR in the Premier League, right? The decision was actually made in the VAR room. You remember when the decision was made in the VAR room? Then everybody was screaming, right? Why isn't the referee, making the decisions? Now they're giving back that decision back to the referee, right? And then the referee, once you're being called to the screen, most of the time in your mind mentally already you already said that, oh shit, maybe I made a mistake. You get what I'm saying? Not? So, but when that goes into your mind, then of course after that, then they will be saying that sometimes I have to stick to my word. So it becomes a conundrum for them what to do. So sometimes when they go one way, it's wrong, and they go the other way, it's wrong. So in the end, there's no objectivity, right? If you draw the line clearly, where is what and what is supposed to be the outcome of what happens, right? Then more or less you will get an objective decision. But at the moment now, I see all decisions are subjective. When it comes to VAR, remember during the MU game, I think Harry Kane headed the ball into one of the defenders' hands. I can't remember who is it, right? In a lot of instances, right, some VAR decisions were gone for the penalty shot. But in that instance, they said that the because they say, oh, it hit him in the what, and then it rolled up. Good, fair. If it hits another appendage and it rolls up to the hand, right? But the thing is that your hand is already up in the air. It hits you and it hits up. If your hand wasn't there, right, the ball could have flopped backwards and dropped to a Spurs player to score the goal. You get what I'm saying? Or get a different outcome will come up from it. But I'm not sure at the moment now why we've come to the stage that in the EPL, and weirdly, it's more or less happening in the EPL, right? The decisions are all subjective at the moment. You see, that's my take on it. But if we can fine tune it a bit more, right? And I don't know, maybe you take a page from the NFL. The NFL, when referee makes a decision, right? They usually explain it why he made the decision on the spot. You get what I'm saying? Give the explanation on the spot. Everybody hears it. Why? Then it's up to the people whether you want to accept it or not. That's all. That's how I see it.
Absolutely correct, sir. And here's another thing as well. In order to your point, I mean, going back to your point on how sometimes the referees still are forced to, either admit that they made a mistake or not. I actually think that in many ways, if as an official you are deemed to have made a mistake and you at least accept that and overturn your decision, it actually augments the level of respect that you receive in return. Because one thing which people don't like is is to see people who have this idea that my decision is final, my thought process was correct, and not even accept when they were wrong. At least if you make a mistake, at least if you tacitly accept that you were wrong and you overturn your decision, you will in many ways be given a lot more respect. And I will come to your idea of the loudspeaker, certainly, but it does also segue into the example of cricket and current World Cup, which is taking place right now in Australia, of course, is connected with that. Um, Basically, what happens is in cricket, a lot of technology has been used to adjudicate a lot of decisions, whether it's a claim for a leg before wicket shout, or it could be a dismissal. I mean, a stumping or a run out at a wicketkeeper's end, for which umpires will still be necessary, or whether to adjudicate whether a catch actually ended up being on the ground and not carrying through to the fielder's hands in question. And of course, what happens now is that when those decisions go straight to the television room, as viewers, we actually get to hear the third umpire speak. So the third umpire will be speaking to the umpire on the field or the referee on the field. And actually, it's not a referee technically, but you get my idea. And the TV, the people in charge of the TV decision making will basically say to the umpire, "Look, we're seeing this. It's either not pitching in line or the ball hasn't carried," and they tell the umpire, "You're going to have to overturn your decision," and they make the sign of overturning the decision, and then the decision gets changed. And basically, what happens is that removes a lot of the controversy, and that's an example of how technology has been applied really, really well. And I remember, and I'm sure Keshav will remember, and maybe you, sir, if you've seen a little bit of cricket, you might remember the olden days when umpires would make their decisions on the field. There was no way to overturn them. And when, after hindsight, would see that those decisions were, in fact, incorrect, those umpires would be subject to the worst of the brickbats, and their integrity would be called into question, and we'd have this controversy, and it would just spiral out of control. At least with technology being applied, there's none of that anymore. Now, football have tried to go down that route. The only problem is, I believe, I think the biggest problem is that the referees in question have tried to apply the letter of the law a little bit too literally. And as you've said, sir, there hasn't been that consistency applied, which gives the impression that some teams are being favored over others. I genuinely believe that every single decision which which has been referred to to VAR should be subject to an independent review after each round of games, and some of those decisions which have been proven to be injudicious should be cited, and the people example should be subject to sanctions. So I'm all for VAR. I think any technology which can improve the game in some way should always be welcomed. It's how people apply it that's the problem. And the idea of certainly letting people know those decisions would also be good.
Yeah, but Manny, of course, big up to Elvin Cheng. Elvin Cheng's a Arsenal fan, right, from Singapore. Right, he said, I agree, VAR should be announced on a loudspeaker so the players and the fans can hear them, right? But what I'm saying at the moment now, right, since with VAR coming in, right, because I remember last time when you make a bad decision, right, the PGMOL will go back and review it, and the referees most probably will get a sanction like suspension for 2-3 games or something, that you'll be taken out of the games, that you will not allowed to do any refereeing anymore. But now with VAR coming in, I hardly ever see that anymore, and they've just like swept everything under the rug. Because I give you a very clear example: against you guys, right, when Emerson stamped on Martinelli, right, the studs was in his ankles, and then he got a red card. Then there was another game when Arsenal played. I'm not sure. One of your players stamped on another player in the same, more or less the same fashion, right? But it wasn't a red card. So you see, in two different games, two different decisions. So instead of making it objective, right? If that is what has happened, if you stamp in that fashion and VAR shows it, right, it should be a red card. But somehow or another, I'm not sure why that they are not briefed, right? If you already make that precedent, then you have to follow it. You see, so at the moment now, I mean, it's like law, right? If a law, when law is set, right? Sometimes in the courts, when you have a precedent, it sets that everybody else has to follow it. But somehow or another in football, they're not following that line. So that's why I said no consistency. If you have a consistency in the decisions, right? If it happens in this match, this happens, and if it's a red card or it's not a red card, then it should be followed, right? If it's a goal, it's not, and it's a handball, it's not a handball, it should be followed. But the problem now is that, like I said, you turn it into a subjective kind of a thing, right? Then it's up to interpretation. Then everybody can say what they want to do, and then like what Keshav says, then it becomes like you're being biased. Maybe they're not being biased. Maybe that's how they see it, but it will make the referees look like they're biased, right? But of course, what else Elvin says? Elvin says there's also should be a margin, right? Such as offside decisions. Offside decisions is another thing, but nowadays with the offside technology, we know even when a lot of goals last season where the hair on your chest is longer than the other guy's hair on the chest there, and it's also considered offside. But like your toe, the boots of the toe, right, where they take it, right, then it's considered offside too. But what is it? The PGMO, right, don't allow referees to discuss games and decisions unless they step in, and maybe that's why referees don't get to reflect. Oh, but I think they get to reflect after the game, right? Because I'm sure after every game, every manager sits down and watches the game. They've got their experts around to watch the games to analyze what happened, right? I'm sure even for referees, right, after the game, they will sit down, right? They will go through the matches and see what were the decisions, whether the big decisions, the controversial decisions, whether it was right or wrong, right? But the problem now is that I'm saying there are no more sanctions on referees anymore because before VAR coming in, if you blatantly make a mistake, right? I've it's been known referees have actually been set aside. They're not allowed to referee any games in the Premier League, and they get actually thrown back into the championship games, the referee championship games, right? Or some of them don't even get to referee any games at all, right? But at this point of time, the referees they don't come and say that, okay, if Anthony Taylor made the mistake, when Cucurella's hair was pulled, right, during the Chelsea draw we had, right? He made a mistake there, right? So he should sit out 2 or 3 games, right? And he's not allowed to referee. They won't come out with a statement of that, and they won't admit that, okay, he made a mistake, right? Because you know why? He went on to VAR to look into that scenario, and he said no. You see, so I guess what they're trying to do is that sometimes you're just trying to protect your own. Then it becomes in the sense that everybody's trying to protect their own. So maybe that's the problem with what we're having with VAR at the moment, right? So that's how I see it. But of course, I'm sure, Mani, you're quite happy, right? Because you drawing with Southampton, we losing to Newcastle, we couldn't gain points on you. So that's one positive. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It is a positive. It is a positive. I mean, certainly for me. But again, it's just another reminder that nothing in this league can be taken for granted.
Mhm.
Yes, we drew, and we're still top of the league. But now, what's significant about is the gap has been reduced from 4 to 2. So hypothetically, if City were to beat us, and they continue winning all of their games, and we have to continue winning all of our games, they could easily overtake us. So that's one of the
Yeah.
reasons why you cannot allow yourself to get gassed up
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
completely
no,
overexcited.
Manny, this is what actually I was talking to Keshav before you opt in. I think what is happening now, right, with the teams playing in Europe, right, we are
Mhm.
playing 2 or 3 games a week, right? When we meet up with a
Yes.
team that doesn't play in Europe, right, our legs aren't there anymore. You get what I'm saying? That's what happened to you guys against Leeds. Leeds actually ran you off the pitch, but like you said, luck was on your side. The penalty they didn't score. Imagine if they scored that penalty, most probably you got on to lose. You get what I'm saying? Right? But the penalty wasn't scored, and that's how maybe you maintain that win. Then maybe against Southampton, like you said, the frailty showed. In the end of the day, the most you could get out of the game is a draw because the legs weren't there anymore. The players couldn't run much anymore. And to come down to what happened is, right. Imagine what's happening in Spurs now. We've lost
Hmm.
4 of our what call oh yeah, the other guy was injured, Romero, Keshav. Yeah, we've lost Romero, we've lost Oibia, we've lost Decky, and we've lost Richarlison. We've lost 4 starters. That's why now that's what happened in Newcastle. Without these 4 players, right? What do you think would happen? I guess it's not. I mean, it's not going to be a pretty sight. And coming up against Sporting Lisbon this what call tomorrow, right? I got a big fear there too, right? But of course, Sporting Lisbon also is in the same precarious position as us because they have to play midweek and they have to play in their league too. So it balances out a bit, right? But according to the news from Sporting Lisbon, they've got a few suspensions and red cards and all that. So some of the players are not. They're not. The full team is not there. You get me saying? Yes, Alvin Ching. Yes,
Yeah.
Mani is a gunner too. Yeah, a fellow gunner. Yeah, yeah. A more pragmatic and more not so deluded gunner.
Yes.
Yeah, right. But at the moment now is that like for us, right? We had to play so many games, and the games are coming thick and fast again, right? You guys will play on Thursday, we play on Wednesday, then we're playing on Saturday or Sunday again, then we comes back again. Then in this 2 or 3 weeks period, right? Then after that is we all most of the squad play, most of the players are going off to the World Cup, and that is the biggest scare because while being such an intense period in the league, then all of a sudden when you're jumping into the World Cup, right? Because if I'm not mistaken, in the World Cup, you're playing in that sort of what call time period too. Every 48 hours to 72 hours, you're playing a game. Every 48 to 72 hours, you're playing a game again. So it's like you're playing 2 or 3 games a week again. So you're coming to the sense that, oh, okay, Steven, no props. Steven's not feeling too well, so he won't be joining us, right? No problem, Steven. So that's what I'm saying. So, and of course, we are looking at teams like, what kind of players and who's involved in where. So, like you're saying, let's say if you're talking teams, players like for us, we've got Romero, Son, Kane, right? Maybe Dyer going to the World Cup. Dyer. All right. And then if something bad happens and also, right, and if they come back injured, right, what's going to happen to our squad? Who are we going to play? And the way you see Conte plays, right? Conte doesn't trust the youngsters. We'll be stuck with, I don't know who's going to start in that team that we have. And let's say, Mani, you have players going off. If say Jesus get picked for Brazil, right? I'm sure Shevchenko is going. Whether Gabriel's going, Martinelli's going, right? I'm sure Ramsdale's going, right? Right, Ramsdale's going. Ben White is going. If Ben White goes, right? Right? And of course, on the Asian side, you have Tom Yasu will be going, right? So you have players flying out, and if they get injured too, what will happen to your team? Are you going to start with Nketiah, right? That becomes another headache for you guys, right? And
Agreed, and yeah, agreed. And let me just give you an update. Zinchenko won't be going because the Ukraine failed to qualify, losing to
oh,
Wales in that playoff
oh
final.
yeah, 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 yeah.
But
Zinchenko will be going,
another
yeah,
player, well, one player we will definitely be losing is Thomas Partey because he will be heading to the World Cup as
yeah,
Ghana's captain. So that's
yeah,
another player who we have to consider. And of course, when you hear his name and understand how injury prone he is, you can
yeah.
imagine that if we were to lose him, as we did against Manchester United at Old Trafford, we'll be stuck up a gum tree. And,
Mhm.
you know, I would like to think in theory that when it comes to maintenance for injuries, I think, hopefully, let's just say, for example, a player were to get injured at the very beginning of the tournament. I would like to think in my heart that in all likelihood, um, the injury won't be so serious that it would necessarily affect that person's availability for the remainder of the Premier League season. And don't forget, the World Cup lasting about 3 weeks as it is. Effectively, if you don't get to go to the World Cup, you have a 3 week to a month break. And I definitely don't
No, I think
think
it's nearly
players.
40 days, if I'm not mistaken. But of course, you're talking 40 days if you're all the way to the final. Yes, you're
Exactly,
not. Yeah,
exactly.
but
So
of
let's
course,
say,
yeah,
yeah. So if you get injured at the beginning of the tournament, for what it's worth, you will have a month or so to
recover.
recover before the season resumes. And in any case, I definitely don't see the likes of Ghana going all the way. I know they very nearly made the semi-finals in 2010, only to be cheated out of it by that scum Luis Suarez, who I absolutely despise. But
Yeah, yeah,
but that's another thing altogether. And of course, there is a lot of discussion as to whether some players will even make the squad. I know that there was a huge controversy about Jesus, Magalhaes, and Martinelli not being in the recent Brazilian squad. But look, although people make so much of a kerfluffle about how if you're not selected in the recent squad, you won't get to play in the tournament. That's not true because normally what happens, as you know quite well, is that there will be camps for the players to sort of show their skills. And Southgate in particular
yeah,
has named a 55-man squad for a preliminary squad, of course. So there'll be a lot of players in that squad, but many of them, of course, will not make the final 25 or so. And
yeah,
that's all the way it is. I could definitely tell you that Ben White will not neither will will not make the World Cup squad either as a centre back with Maguire, Stones, and Connor Cody, and at least one or two other defenders ahead of him in the pecking order. He certainly won't come in as a right
Yeah.
back who will. I mean, with Trippier and Walker ahead of him, and certainly Alexander Arnold coming back into form at the right time.
Walker might not even be able to make it if I'm not mistaken. But the problem now is, see, even like say for Brazil, right? Richarlison's injury, we are really not sure whether how bad it is. He might not even make the World Cup, because if he doesn't come back and play at least the last 2 games for us, right? Will the what is it? Tete pick him for Brazil? But if Jesus keeps banging in the goals, right? From now until then, I'm sure he'll pick Jesus over Richarlison, because
But then
he's
here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. I mean, you know, Jesus obviously started the season quite well, but in the last few games, his goals seem to have dried up. And even if you were to take a look at their respective records for the Seleção, one of the reasons why I wasn't really keen on having Jesus coming to play for us is that his record, goal scoring record at international level, wasn't really of the best. I think in about 50 odd games, he only scored about 18 goals, which is a rather disappointing return for a supposed centre forward of decent quality. Whereas someone like Morata, who is not really very highly regarded, has about an average of about a goal every 2 games for Spain, and still is able to find the net every now and then. Of course, criticism is that he only pads his stats against some of the smaller teams, but the point is at least he scores goals. Richarlison's stats for Brazil are at least marginally more impressive. I believe he has 17 goals in 38 games, which is one less goal than Jesus' 18, but in about 10 or 15 fewer games. And obviously, with Richarlison's injury, if he doesn't make the squad, this was the recent-most squad, I believe. The squads for
the
Ghana and
recent
Tunisia were.
yeah.
Yeah, so on the 27th of September, you'd be playing Tunisia. For some reason, Richarlison has not been necessarily withdrawn from the squad, but I think I don't know why he hasn't been. I'm pretty certain that either of Jesus or Martinelli should be called up instead. Yeah, if again with Jesus' stats, it's 19 from 56, which isn't exactly the best of returns. So in terms of clinical ability, Richarlison would be marginally ahead of Jesus in the pecking order. And if Jesus doesn't score more goals, then I don't see why he'll get picked for the squad, especially when they have the likes of Neymar still doing well, Antony doing well, Rafinha also at Barcelona starting to get settled in, Vinicius Junior with Real Madrid, and of course Firmino with Liverpool, who ironically has very similar goal scoring stats for Brazil to Jesus. So there are a lot of permutations and a lot of things that come into it. So even Jesus' spot in the squad will not be guaranteed. And if Richarlison doesn't make the World Cup squad, then maybe it'll be all the better for Tottenham, because that'll give him more time to rest and recuperate and be fresh and fit to play a role for you after the World Cup. And that sort of segues into the issue that your squad depth, Eugene, is a lot better than Arsenal's is right now. So we're the ones who have to worry about losing players. We're the ones who have to worry about
honestly,
squad depth.
yeah. But to tell you the truth, right? Honestly, I think our squad depth is slightly better than yours at the moment, right? But the problem is that our injuries are coming in early. You get what I'm saying? Because you don't forget, our players have been actually worn out since last season until now. You see, and it's a continuous thing. That's why now you see actually Højbjerg is the one breaking down. Højbjerg has been playing every game consistently for the past 2 or 3 years, right? But let's get to Keshav. Keshav, what other players do you have going to the World Cup then?
We have Declan Rice, Skamaka,
Yeah.
Paqueta.
Skamaka is Italian, right?
Yes, Italian.
Italy is not in the World Cup, bro.
No, World Cup, I forgot.
Yeah, you forgot Italy not in the World Cup, bro.
Who else? Paqueta, Rice. Who else?
Who else do you have? Antonio is not going to the World Cup, right?
No, Antonio is not in the World Cup. Bowen probably, yeah. I'll say Bowen.
Bowen might squeeze in. Yeah, Bowen might squeeze in.
Who else? Probably Zuma, but I'm not sure Zuma's in the French national team right now. No,
Zuma, I'm not sure too. Yeah.
I think probably.
But it means that you don't have that many World Cup attendees.
No, I don't think so.
That
No.
means that most probably will give you more time to recuperate and be more ready for the after the World Cup, right? So, but like I said, in the end of the day, what our biggest fear now is that, of course, we look at our squad depth. Like I've been saying, Spurs squad depth is slightly better than Arsenal's because uh, with the quality of players that we have. But the problem is that our injuries are coming now, right? And the thing is that let's see whether when does Arsenal's injuries start to kick in, because sooner or later injuries will have to take their toll. And every season there will be injuries, right? No player will be not injured for at least a period of time. At least there must be some injuries along the way if you keep playing them all the time. Unless you are something like M City, right, where you actually can rotate your 11 for 11, then that's a different story, totally different ball game, different story. That's why I was saying. In their day, even Liverpool now is suffering because Liverpool's team, we can see that they are actually getting old, right? Their midfield is actually overage, right? And at the moment now, without and a lot, I don't understand that. A lot of Liverpool fans do not want to admit that the loss of Sane is actually killing them now. The loss of Sane is actually killing them now, right? Because without Sane, they don't have that press. You see, most of the press last time was just it was actually being held up by Sane. Sane was the one bringing up the press. But now, with what's happening in Liverpool now, right? That's what's happening with them too. And to tell the truth, Liverpool is the team which actually has been suffering with injuries from day one of the EPL, if I'm not mistaken. From day one, they've been suffering of the injuries, and they are the ones now. That's why way down below. Even they are what eight? What? No, sorry. Where are they now? Eighth now? Eight or something like that. Liverpool, right? Eight in the league, right? So as I see it now, for all you know, Liverpool might come back stronger in the second half of the season because while all these injured players, right, not going to the World Cup, right, they will have more time to recuperate. So when end of December comes, right, these players will be up and running and ready to play. But don't forget, they will still have players going to the World Cup too, like Van Dijk and all that, right? The rest all those players going to the World Cup, right? Something might happen to them, then they will have another reversal on that. So to me, how I say is at that bad scenario at the moment, right? But of course, apart from that, any and of course,
Uh,
yeah, struggling
what
to replace Blue. Yeah,
what
yes,
did you
right.
think of the Aston Villa appointment, Unai Emery?
Oh, good evening. Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening. I don't
Let me
know.
say right now that Villa have got the best part of that deal. But sorry, Eugene, go ahead.
No, I'm saying. I was saying. Mani, he was your manager for a period of time,
Mm.
right? Before Arteta coming in, right? And now he's going to Aston Villa. Do you think he has a point to prove against you guys?
No, he doesn't, because he already proved his point to us when he knocked us out of the Europa League at the semi-final stage, when our manager, for whatever reason, thought he would be smart enough to try and use a false nine in the first leg, and then the second leg, when we needed just one goal to get through, he took off our number one goal scorer to put on an out of form midfielder. Uh, Emery's already proven his worth. He doesn't have a point to prove to us or to anyone else. He's already shown his worth as a manager when it comes to joining teams which are sort of at the middle of the road or struggling and turning them into amazing teams. Maybe when it comes to managing a bigger team, there'd be a little bit too much in terms of structure. He tried to, impose. He wouldn't really know what to do, and would sort of think of something to do. But when he was with us, he actually did a really good job with us. We were 22 games unbeaten, and had that long unbeaten run, and we just missed out on the Champions League by a fine margin. He took us to the Europa League final, and he finished that season with 70 points. And I suppose in some ways, in the second season, given that the tools were down in many ways, and the results weren't really coming, maybe he had to leave. But it just puts into perspective how much support Arteta has been given, and Arteta hasn't really done anything, at least not yet, to warrant that support. Yes, he was able to win the World Cup, but that was really not so much because of Arteta in question, but also because of how the players, you know, peaked and overperformed, and certainly with Aubameyang doing well and Emi Martinez doing well, they were the ones who deserve
Yeah,
credit for making Arteta his for giving Arteta his first trophy and helping him make history as having captained and managed an FA Cup winning team. But Emery, during his seasons with us, certainly tried to do a lot of things, and he was also quite cognizant to realise that a few of the players had started to become bad eggs, and there were one or two who simply weren't up to snuff, as it were. I wanted Mesut Ozil to leave the club after that whole 2018 controversy because it was pretty clear that he had, thrown his country under the bus by doing what he did. That stupid stunt with Erdogan was dreadful. And I thought to myself then, if he's willing to sell out his country and throw his country under the bus, what's the guarantee that he's not going to slack off and start betraying us in a way? And he ended up basically not lasting very long. He was effectively frozen out by Mikel Arteta, and it's as if Emery was the one who had the intuition, but Arteta basically took all the credit in some ways. So going back to Emery, he's certainly a manager who knows how to get a team to overperform and really go as far as it can. And obviously, with Aston Villa being the team he's managing now, he will certainly get a tune out of them. And obviously, there will be a few Spanish-speaking footballers in that team who will be willing to translate what he'd have to say, although I dare say his English has improved. I believe he has continued to work on his English, and it might be of better quality now. But he will come into the team. He will command respect based on his record. He will make sure that he gets the players behind him and they will start performing. Certainly with that 4-0 win over Brentford, they proved that when they get together and when they're at their best, they can become a really good team. It's just that some of the players who are out of form right now might need to stand up and start making themselves counted. But Emery will get a tune out of them. I'm delighted for him. And I think it's fair to say that he was an excellent manager and still is an excellent manager. He just joined us at the wrong time. And one thing which, I believe would be a bit of a drawback would have been his English proficiency. It proved to be something of a factor in some ways because he never really got the support he deserved. But water under the bridge, he's achieved bigger and better things with Villarreal. Maybe he's taken that Spanish club as far as they could go, and now he's come for a new challenge. I say, buena suerte, senor, and welcome back.
Yeah. But of course, how much time did Emery actually get? Like Alvin Cheng is saying, I like Emery just didn't get enough time to rebuild vis-a-vis Arteta and Mo. Right now.
Yeah, Alvin is spot on there. Spot on.
He had about Emery, 18 months?
Yeah, around about 18 months or so. I think he left sometime in November, and then in December, Ljungberg took over as the caretaker, and Arteta came in January at about the same time Ancelotti went to Everton.
Yeah. And of course, big up to Chris Agama. Big up, Chris. And then, of course, it's good evening. Yeah, good evening. Right. And hold on, let me bring on my brother. Good evening. Right. Hi, Brian.
What's up, buddy?
Yeah. You've met Keshav? You met Mani before?
You know what, mate? Honestly, you know how many streams I go on. I can't remember who I've seen or what I've seen.
No, Brian, I actually remember you, mate, because we had a really big stream on Eugen's channel, and there was another Tottenham fan also. I think it was King Arthur, I think his name was. I remember you quite well. You're not easily forgotten, mate.
Oh, well, I hope that's in a positive way, rather than...
It is positive. It is.
There we go. There we go. Then thank you, my friend. Thank you, Manny. It's a pleasure to be with you again. And Kishav, do I see a West Ham kit?
Yes,
he's
that's
a
right.
West Ham fan. He's a West Ham fan.
Hello, Kishav. Hello, sir. Hello, buddy. You good?
Yes, good. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. How was Ben's show? Everything done there? Everything good?
Yeah, Ben's show is always. You know what? Ben's show is always a great relaxing. Well, it's early morning for me here, or no, mid morning now here in Toronto. But obviously, it's a very, very relaxed, chill out and joke about stream that we start off talking about Tottenham, or maybe not. Tottenham does get spoken about, but it's also nice to speak about other things within the community than Tottenham Hotspur, especially at the moment.
Yeah. Because I was just talking to Keshav and Mani about the condition that of our team, right? Because we're looking back because Arsenal didn't do too well because they drew with Southampton, but of course Keshav West Ham got a win over Bournemouth, which was also very controversial because of VAR. But I've been saying because the performance of our teams nowadays, I think us playing in the Europe, right, is actually taking its toll on our players. And of course, being a Spurs fan, like me and Brian here, right, we've seen the injuries come in thick and fast, and that's actually killing our squad. Because when we look back at our bench, we've got no one. And I was telling Keshav earlier, against the during the Newcastle game, right? After we got in the first goal for Hurricane scoring a goal, we were thinking, okay, we can go up another gear, right, and at least try to get the equalizer. But then when Conte looks at the bench, right, who he's going to bring on? Well, he brings on Mora and he brings on Perisic, and that didn't work out. The second time he made his substitutions, who did he bring on? He brought on two more defenders for two more defenders. There are no more attacking options for us to go ahead for. You see?
Yeah.
So yeah. So that's the sad part. That's what's happening now, right? And of course, the injuries that we've been getting, right, it's not helping us. And of course, the Champions League game is coming up tomorrow. That is going to be more scary than ever because we don't have the squad to go and play that game. That's
Yeah,
how I see it.
Eugene also, and it's been retweeted all over the place. And when Ali Gold and Tottenham Hotspur officials showed the players training for tomorrow, Romero hasn't trained.
Yeah, Romero's injured.
So that's without our best defender. Like on his day, he is the best. To tell you the truth, on his day, Romero walks into any Premier League team.
That's
In fact,
true.
he walks into most teams worldwide. He's that good. He hasn't been this season. He's been way off the pace, but like you said, it's because he's been rushed back from injury because we didn't sign a replacement or backup because we had a great window. And yeah, it's what can you say? Unfortunately, we've been found out once again not to have the squad to cope with the. If this was the Europa League or the Conference League, if we were back in it again, would we have had the team to play youngsters or fringe players to get through? You would have thought so. But we're talking about the Champions League here, and it doesn't matter if it's Tottenham, doesn't matter if it's West Ham or any team in the Champions League. You need to have your elite players playing.
Yep.
You
You got to leave soon, Keshav?
Yeah.
Yep. Just give your last thoughts, right, before you leave, and then anything else you want to say?
I think pretty much what I summed up. Yeah, just the Bournemouth game was a lot of controversy in terms of the goals. To be honest, VAR has been shit really because of how they've decided the decisions. I thought the first goal West Ham scored wasn't supposed to be a goal, and to be honest, we were lucky to win the game. But overall, referees do really need to have a look at how they make their decisions and really analyze after the game or have a post-match, because referees need to be evaluated thoroughly because they need to know why they make the decision, what is the reason behind the decision. So I don't know whether that's going to happen, but we'll see. Yeah. But anyway, thanks for having me on the show.
Okay, Chef. Thanks for being on. Right. I'll catch up with you later. All right. Bye-bye.
See you
Take
later,
care.
Keshav. Nice meeting you.
Bye, Keshav.
Nice meeting. Bye.
Right. Okay, now we're back. Okay. And of course, Mani was saying too, right? Because he's comparing our squad with with the Arsenal squad. Because he says that our squad is slightly better than the Arsenal squad. But of course, I told Mani, our squad has our injuries now, but you guys haven't reached. You guys haven't had any injuries, right? So, but of course, there's been a drop off in the performance from the Arsenal team as well, right?
So what you got to look at with Arsenal as well is the Cronkies have started back in Arteta. There's no way you can describe you. There's no way you can't say they're not. But what they're doing is they're not going out and buying players like a Nicolas Pepe for 70 million that they don't know will make it in the Premier League. The signings of Jesus and Zinchenko were fantastic additions for them. As much as I hate to say it, they come in, they know the Premier League, they're exactly what they need to improve that first team, which is kind of what you want to do in a transfer market. You're looking to, yes, you buy the odd ones that are young starlets that are doing well, but the main thing in transfer windows is to strengthen your first team to get you to where you want to be or to try and reach your goals. And Arsenal did that this summer. Arsenal did it. Those two have made. Arsenal have always tried to play that since Wenger, this lovely open attacking football, and they sign players to help be able to do that. We have kind of just got a scattergun approach to go, yeah, we'll get this guy, we'll get that guy. Yeah, we need to. There's no thought process.
But yeah, I understand, Brian. But you see, when Conte first came in, right, in the beginnings of, last year, we're talking about last year, right? He already said that our whole structure of the football is really bad. You know, you remember during the January transfer window when he was saying something like, you buy players worth 60 million pounds and you're looking to loan them out now, right?
Yeah.
What is going on? So what has happened is, right, and Kuva, if you want to join us, you can join us, right? Long time no see, Brian. Yeah, you were
Yeah,
just
I just said I'm missing him already and sent him a kiss.
yeah,
Missing him already.
Kuva, you know where the link is. If you want the link, I'll send it to you again, or just put it into the chats, right? If you want to join us. Right. But what I've been saying, what happened now? Kuva broke my train of thought.
I was talking about how they brought players in to strengthen their first team immediately.
Yeah. And what we do is, right, we don't, you see, we keep making this mistake. We keep buying players from outside of the Premier League, right, and hoping they will adapt to the Premier League, which is now we see that players like Perisic is not adapting well to the Premier League. We all can see it. Before he came, the hype was there, a world class, blah blah blah,
Yep.
and all that, an ex-Conte player, right? But he's taking a terrible time to adapt to the Premier League, the speed and the demands of the Premier League, right? We brought in Bissouma from the Premier League, correct? And somehow another Bissouma is not even getting enough game time, correct? And then we bring in Langley. Langley is a defender in the Spanish league, and he's not. I don't think he needs some time to actually adapt to what's happening in the Premier League. So, but what Arsenal's done is that they just went out and got 2 Premier League players to fit in and just to move on, right? So I hope one thing that we learned, right, in the January transfer window, maybe we got lucky, Brian, right? When we brought in Deki and Bentancur, right, from Juventus, they slotted in January and they fitted perfectly and they were up to speed in at least 2 or 3 games, or within 1 or 2 weeks, they were up to speed for the Premier League, right? And maybe we got very, very lucky there. And that's how we pipped Arsenal to the Champions League spot, right? Because Mani, if I'm not mistaken, right, last season January, you didn't improve in your squad, right? You just stick to what you guys had, yeah. And we're hoping that Nketiah could bring you to the Champions League, but it didn't happen, all right? Mani.
Yeah, exactly. And this sort of talks about the segues back into the penny wise, pound foolish attitude, which has plagued Arsenal of late in the transfer market. And I like how Brian has spoken about Jesus and Zinchenko, who have obviously improved our team. But in terms of some of the other signings, they still have to have some way to go to help let us determine that they've certainly improved us in many ways. It's very easy to say that, we shouldn't make any panic-based decisions. But given how we fell over ourselves to try and sign Douglas Luiz on the final day of the September window, I think that pretty much, that sort of laughs at that, really, because we wanted a midfielder. We could have had Douglas Luiz, and eventually that deal fell through. And then Arteta would pat himself on the back, saying it's a mark of our discipline that we didn't make any panic buys. Sometimes you've got to have a more structured approach. I completely agree, but you also have to make a decision as to whether or not a player who could serve a purpose is absolutely worth it. And if you need that person in your team, if you want that person in your team, you go out and get it. There's a saying in London, shy boys don't get sweets. You have to know what you want. You want your sweets, but you cannot be too shy in going about it. If you don't make it very clear that you want something, you're not going to get it most of the time. So I actually tend to believe that when it comes to the way Tottenham have conducted their business, and I see a third Tottenham fan has joined the building. Evening to you, Kuva. Nice to see you.
Evening.
Have you met Mani, Kuva?
I've seen Manny. I don't think I've been on the stream with you before, though, have I, mate?
Yeah.
No, you haven't. And I think you've done a video with Bobby Kay from the Three Spurs Boys, I remember.
That's right.
Quite a few with
he's
him.
Out of poop in a can.
Yeah, so it's as if now it's 3 against 1, but with me, I'm not going to enter any hostilities. I'm just, playing along with everything.
But man, what I will say? Maybe 3 against 1 Spurs fans, but you've got 3 Spurs fans here that speak football. not just Tottenham are better than you because we support Tottenham, and we're the best, and our chairman's wonderful, our chairman's this. You got three people that will openly talk the truth or their opinion. It's not just you're better because you're Arsenal, you're wrong. It's you're lucky. Maybe 3 against 1, but it's all one love.
No, but here's the thing, and that's why Eugene brought me on, because he knows I'm not going to engage in any stupid banter with you lot. So, yeah, it's all good. I mean, we're all four on the same page. So, at least I will give Spurs a bit of credit in that. At least when it came to trying to get certain players, I mean, I personally would have given my right index finger for Jed Spence to come into our team, because I remember how he torched us in the FA Cup the previous season. And of course, someone like a Basuma was someone we were interested in. He would have certainly added to our squad as competition for Partey, especially. But then you ended up snapping him up. And there have been some people who've spoken about the fake squad depth that Tottenham have. I'm not going to really go along with that, because at least you showed that you wanted something and you had the gumption to go out and get it, whereas we pretty much stood with our socks around our ankles. We were dawdling, and we ended up having our lunch money taken away. So at least you had the intent. We didn't have the intent. And I'm not about to sugarcoat our approach by saying we wanted to take our time and really think of what we wanted. We got a decent striker who was a replacement for Alex Lacazette, or lack of threat, as we would say. And of course, Zinchenko coming in as good competition for Kieran Tierney, who I absolutely love to bits, but he obviously needed some competition and some strengthening in that position. But where's our defensive midfield cover? And as a reserve goalkeeper, we signed the American Matt Turner, who's done decently so far. You guys have got Fraser Forster, who is, of course, a former England international, experienced Premiership goalkeeper, excellent quality, and I would like to see him start the next Premiership game after Larissa's poor performance, another one to the score against Newcastle. So you've actually at least shown intent to try to strengthen your squad holistically, whereas we have made 1 or 2 signings and haven't really shown intent to try to strengthen the side where it needs to be strengthened. And yes, we haven't had the major injuries as of yet, but it will only be a matter of time before our poor squad depth comes back to bite us in our rear end. So I am worried about Arsenal, and obviously the draw against Southampton couldn't have come at a worst possible time. It means it's a sign that we're running on fumes. We're still continuing to play our first 11 almost week in and week out, and I think in many cases some of their legs have gone. If we don't have a proper squad, we can't even pretend to compete. And with games coming thick and fast after the World Cup, well, effectively, we're going to be up the river without a paddle.
It's what it's really strange, Manny. Opposite ends of the spectrum, obviously, with being Spurs and Arsenal. But it's funny how we're both looking at the other club's transfer window and thinking they've done a better job than us. For us, from my point of view, with our team, we've brought in players that are neither here nor there. There's no guaranteed first-team regulars to improve the first-team squad. It's players that are used in rotation, backups, players that don't even get into the team at all, like Jed Spence. But because it's not really being bought for the manager. It's like this random sort of shot at trying to improve the squad depth. Now, if you're not improving the first team, what does the depth matter if your first team hasn't got better than it was last season? Whereas I look at Arsenal, Zinchenko first straight into the team, Jesus straight into the team, brought Saliba back straight into the team. The consistent performers this season. So I think in that respect, you've done better than we have. But I do believe you've got a point there about your centre of midfield, the defensive type midfielders. I said this at the start of the season. I thought Arsenal were going to be a massive threat to us this season, but the wheels come off if you get a long-term injury to the likes of Partey. And I think that's pretty much how you were saying it there. So I think there are the bigger issue for both clubs is how have we fallen into a state where we need so many players in such short time. It should never have got to this for either club. We're supposed to be big clubs. And we've let things fester for many, many seasons. And we're in this constant sort of rebuild state. It's looking great for you at the moment. And as you said, until the injuries come in, we'll see how well it's really done overall there. But it's the same for us. few injuries come in. We have Kulusevski missing. We can't even play a 3-4-3 formation. It's ridiculous. We've got nobody. So
but why can't you consider giving Jed Spence an option? Because I mean,
I'd
as
love
stubborn
to.
as Conte might be, he can't be that naive to think that he can just keep some players in reserve and not play them while the first team is crying out for someone to play in that position.
I'd love to see it, mate. It's just it's obviously must be a case of Conte looks at Spence in training, thinking perhaps it's the naivety. Well, one thing I did see from last season when I watched him play, saw him play about 2 or 3 times, and although he was exciting and offered a lot going forward, he was very naive with the ball. Sometimes he wouldn't read the game very well, perhaps get himself out of position too often, and perhaps that's just put the little sort of warning flags in Conte's mind, thinking he's not ready yet. He has to be consistent at doing what I need in that role. He's got the raw talent, but not the finesse to go with it. That's all I can think of, because I think myself and a lot of fans would love to see him in instead of the likes of Emerson.
Yeah, that's true. That's very, very true. Emerson, oh, don't go there, right? But at least what Manny you're saying is true, right? But to each club and to each fan, right, how we see it, right, is unless you're talking like you're either now an M City or maybe in the future a Newcastle fan, right, where they actually can build a team of actual good 22 players that can just swap within each other and not have the fatigue come in and not worry about injuries coming in or amount of games that you have to play at this level, right? But I don't think we'll ever reach that level because number one, being a Spurs fan, our owner will never spend that kind of money, right? Or we will spend the kind of money, but we won't spend it wisely, right? But at least for being an Arsenal fan, right? Your owners have stuck out with Arteta for the past 3 years through the good and the bad, right? And he's been that able to actually build his identity onto the squad, the type of way that they want to play. For us Spurs fans, right? We've been sitting there watching managers go in and out for the past how many years? 22 years. It's like a revolving door. And then we don't have a consistent style of play. I think the longest two managers that actually stayed in the club is actually Harry Redknapp and Poch, right? If I'm not mistaken. Right? So, and Poch, I think was there for 5 years, right? Just as we thought that we could build on something, right? The plug was pulled again. And then we're going through this whole cycle of, I don't know what to call it anymore, right? This whole cycle over again. And now with Conte in, we do know the style of football that Conte plays, right? It can get ugly most of the time, but it takes time for him to actually to turn it around to make it more pleasant on the eye. But with the results coming in like this now, you I'm sure, Mani, you see it on Twitter, right? The Spurs fan base is totally divided, right? There's one side that wants Conte out. There's one side that says that gives Conte time, and then the other side who just goes that, oh, what are we gonna do, right? So, but at least for the past 3 years, being an Arsenal fan, you had your views, right? There've been the Arteta ins and then the Arteta outs, right? But at least now Arteta is showing some results. A lot of the Arteta outers are just keeping quiet to watch. Like for me, Brian and Coover here, we are basically Levy outers, right? When Conte came in, we kept quiet to see what's going to happen, right? When the January window of transfer came in, if you don't know who Brian Daigle is, right? Let me say this side, right? He actually stood out at
Do you know
Hotspur
what?
Way.
You can't work on a game show. You can't work on a game show showing where the prizes are because
right. Brian was back in last year in January, or is it this year? This year in January, right? In January, the whole transfer window for 30 days, right?
But it weren't 30. It weren't 30. It was 17.
17 days, right? At Hotspur Way, right? Protesting for players, right? And what did Daniel Levy do on the 31st of January? 31st of January. I think he did that purposely to torture Brian, right? Standing out in the cold for 17 days. On the 31st of January, he brought in Kulu and Deki. No, brought in Bentancur and Deki, right? On the 31st of January, right? On the last day of transfer window, right? Which what he did, right? But we are so lucky that when these two players came in, right, within the 2 weeks or 3 weeks, right, they gelled straight into our squad and made us better, right? While you guys last January passed, right, didn't buy any players, and you guys started to falter backwards. You guys say? But what's happened now is that in the summer window, Spurs fans themselves could identify the weakest points that we had in our squad. We needed a proper right wing back. We needed a proper center back, right? And we needed a creative midfielder, right? Just in case plan A doesn't work, we got plan B. But what did we buy? Right? We went out and bought a striker. Okay. To be fair, we needed a forward player because right, Son and Kane, right, has been overplayed for the past 4 or 5 seasons, right? But paying nearly 60 million for Richarlison, that is still we have to wait and see whether it was worth it. Okay. Then there was the Jet Spence debacle. We've been linked to Jet Spence since January, right, until summer, right? And then it took another how many more days before we got him in, right? Another 2 more months before we got in him. And then when Conte comes out and says that he was a club signing, not his signing, and blah blah blah. And then we did the weirdest things that a Spurs fan has never seen in this generation of us Spurs fans, right? Where our club goes out and buy all these players early and hypes up everything. You know, Perisic comes in, Bissouma comes in, you know, all these players comes in, right? You know, and then the last month of the transfer window, everything goes quiet. We were hoping for more players, nothing happens, right? Because what the manager says, oh, we need to get Lo Celso out, Ndombele out, we'll get Reguilon out, we'll get all these players out before we can bring players in. We got most of them out. In the end of the day, we're supposed even to get Tanganga out and to get Hill out. So Conte could bring in 2 more players to cover those positions, but they didn't get. They weren't shipped out on loan or sold. Of course, we sold Steven Bergwijn, right? And that's what we're stuck with now. And now we got 4 injuries, right? And that 4 injuries has now decimated our first team. And how are we going to survive from now until before the World Cup starts?
Do you know what? It's good, Eugene, that you just mentioned injuries and the medical team. Because if you look at it, Arsenal have people like Kieran Trippier, who unfortunately, even before he came to Arsenal, regularly picked up injuries of whatever they may be. And unfortunately, these injuries keep happening to him. So Arsenal have had, and we had this with Darren Anderton, where he kept picking up injuries. But now what's happening is we're signing these players that don't have injury records. They're picking up an injury, which is all part and parcel of football. It happens. But the medical team that is due there to fix them and get them back, every time I use Kulusevski as an option, yeah, Kulusevski's back in training. He's back in his. Oh, wait a minute. He's picked up that injury again. What we're having is we're having a recurring amount of injuries.
Brian,
it's taking them ages to get back. Whereas there's other. Don't get me wrong, you can sign a player like Perisic. Perisic was injured before we go, and he's getting old. He'll pick up injuries. But our injuries seem to be player gets injured, fine. It's their recovery and the estimated time back that seems to be the issue every single time. The medical team needs to be looked into.
That's the problem. I think that's the whole structure of our football, the football side of things, right, in our club. That's the big problem. From the recruitment, the scouting, right, and the medical team. When you're talking about that injury scenario, right, there's one example I can give to you. Ryan Sessegnon, remember? He came back from Hoffenheim, right? It took him nearly 6 months to 8 months before he came back into the first team, right? Because the injuries were recurring, and they couldn't solve the problem. They keep not being able to solve the problem. But my biggest worry is that going to happen to Decky? If that happens to Decky, right, what are we going to have, right? What are we going to have? But my biggest worry now, right, we got 4 of our first team players out. How are we going to survive from now, tomorrow, until the World Cup? We got another 5 games to go. How are we going to survive? The way we've seen, the players already look like they're already burnt out, right? How are we going to survive? That's my biggest worry. You see?
The one bit. Sorry, Q. Just very quickly. The one thing I will say is this happened the first season with Pochettino. it took a while for the players to feel the benefit and get used to the training regime. And then after that second half of the season, we picked up. And then the second season, obviously, we had our unbeaten at the Lane. It could be that and trying to get everything done before this World Cup. That could be a gauge. But I agree with you. We were told that we were going to have rotation and the squad, and we haven't had that. So I think there's a bit of both there. Sorry, Kuba, I just wanted to say that.
I was going to say, don't worry, you've got Davinson Sanchez and Lucas Moura to come into the team.
Davinson
No.
Brian Hill.
Brian Hill. Brian Hill is
Hill, yeah.
Do you know what? If we went 4-3-3, I want to see Brian Hill. If we were to go 3-4-3, at least we saw when he came on, he will. Not saying that he'll have a good account of himself, not saying that he's the game changer, but at least there's that player that will try a bit of creativity. Whether it comes off or not is completely, I don't think it will. But at least if you've got him, you're like, okay, that is an attacking move. That is, for what he does and what his job is, that would be attacking moves. So if we were to go 3-4-3 and he was there, I'm not saying it's what I would want, but I'd understand it for that creativity part.
That's true.
I think that's the problem with squad depth, isn't it? With Brian Hill, I see nothing. He just can't stand up to the standard play.
I was doing a watch along with the Newcastle game with some Malaysian Newcastle fans.
You need to stop doing watch alongs, mate. They used to be lucky. They're looking like they're not lucky now.
It's all on you, Eugene.
It's all on me now. No, I blame it on the rain. It's all on the rain.
Blame it on the stain. Blame it on the stain. I had to wash the stain now. Let's blame that.
Yeah. No, you know what happened is
he can't defend himself, the stain.
I did this watch along with some Newcastle Malaysian fans. The best thing was that when he read the lineup, right, when he saw Emerson was playing, his grin on his face. Even, oh my God, I don't know what to say. Even Newcastle fan knows that if Emerson is playing, right, the chances of winning is so much higher. Oh dear. Big up Eva, man. Big up. All right, big up Eva. How are you doing? Right. I know she was on the last part of the one. But guys, Manny, are you still there?
Yep, still here. Just switched off the camera for a bit because, I mean, so that's sort of my way of getting out of the spotlight a bit. But yeah, I'm here. I'm still here.
That's good. Nah, because most probably I'm going to end the stream soon, right? It's going to be 2 hours here. I've been sitting here for 2 hours, right?
I wondered, just quickly for asking Manny, because I wasn't here earlier, perhaps you've already answered the question, unfortunately. But what sort of finishing position do you see both Spurs and Arsenal in at the end of the season?
Ooh, here's the thing. I mean, obviously, I remember predicting that Tottenham would be in the top 4, but I'm sorry to have to say this. Seeing the way Spurs played when they came to the Emirates, I was just thinking to myself, all that talent you have in your squad, and that's the best you could do. And one of the reasons why I cannot really abide with Conte is that even though things clearly aren't going too well for him, as proved against Arsenal and Manchester United, I just don't see him being willing to change his style of football. And unless he improves the quality of football that Spurs can produce, I don't see Spurs finishing in the top 4. I am sorry to say that. And at the beginning of the season, I had you finishing as high as maybe 3rd. I don't know if that can happen now. With Arsenal as well, I'm not going to be all doom and gloom and say the wheels are starting to fall off, but we do have a lot of work to do when it comes to making sure that we can withstand any inevitable injury losses or any losses of form. And I think Alvin's just said it. We are overperforming, and we're not complaining now, but it's sort of like Murphy's Law. What goes up eventually comes down. And in the Premiership, we all know that it's a marathon and not a sprint. If you want to, the teams which set an early pace have got to have enough in reserve to keep the pace going, like Manchester City, and we don't have that. I think Arsenal should be able to finish 4th, but it won't be easy because Chelsea and Manchester United are snapping at our heels. I think Tottenham might end up finishing 5th if they can at least. They should be able to win against a lot of the smaller teams in the division, the teams which aren't doing too well. But against the big teams, I know that you guys fancy yourselves as Manchester City's bogey team, but I think City will have enough to cope with this year. I think Arsenal will finish 4th and Tottenham will finish 6th. But again, 5th, because of the way things are going. But again, everything is subject to change. Predictions don't mean anything at the end of the day.
True. I think it's a fair summary for me. I'm kind of along the same lines. I think this you at the top and us third are very false positions at the moment.
Yes,
I think we're both
exactly.
lower than that.
But also
I agree with
depends,
Chelsea.
yeah. But like I said, Coover, right? A lot maybe depending on the January transfer window. We do not know what will happen there, right? If Arsenal goes out and throw the money in January, right? I'm not sure you guys know who Steven is, right? Steven says that will never happen, right? Because you already spent your money, you don't have money to spend in January. But if Spurs do go up and strengthen up in January again, like what we did last season, right? And bring in a couple of players to give Conte some hope, because at the moment now, I don't think it's Conte's problem. I think the problem is he doesn't have the players to actually implement what he wants to do, right? He doesn't have actual players he needs to implement, right? He's been playing the 3-4-3, right? And the 3-4-3 has been whatever it is, and we've been getting results. Now, with the players getting injured, he has to switch to a 3-5-2, which I see the problem is whether it's a 5-3-2 or a 3-5-2, right? The players are not used to it, because all of a sudden that system has changed. That has actually made us more weaker or more vulnerable. That's how I see it. But like I said, if we do go out and strengthen in January, maybe we can make a push for fourth, right? And maybe pip Liverpool out of that last spot. Because what I see now, if Liverpool doesn't improve quickly, right, they will be actually falling behind. You see, because I think that last spot out there now is between maybe we're not going to say first, like it's from second, third, fourth, right? We're going to look at who's going to win it, right? If M City falls first, and if they win the Champions League, right, it doesn't make much of a difference, because they are 1-1, they are there. Because if you're outside of the Champions League position, then it makes a difference, right? But at the moment now, like I've been saying, if Arsenal maintains this kind of form, and how we say, but like Mani's been saying, it looks like you guys are running on fumes already, right? And you have also the few games. I'm sure you have another five games to come up, right? When are you gonna play MCT? Are you gonna play them before the World Cup or after the World Cup?
I'll check the schedule and tell you right now, sir. And
Yeah.
I would imagine Sky have got hold of that and said we want to play this one late in the season.
Yeah, maybe they want to play that late.
I think. Yeah, hold on.
I think it'll be after the World Cup, right? I don't think it'll be before the World Cup.
Too many European fixtures to fulfill before, isn't there?
Yeah. In fact, our original fixture against City was postponed to accommodate the European fixtures you've mentioned. So I want to.
Right.
I think a lot of people are overlooking Newcastle as well, just how good they're improving, and I could see them making top four. I could even see the scenario where neither Spurs nor Arsenal make it.
Wow.
What you got to remember as well is if Newcastle are doing what they're doing, they will open the checkbook.
Yeah,
they will be like, well, our aspirations were like relegation, avoid last season. Let's survive and try and get into the top half, or let's say even Europa or the conference. But if they're sitting fourth when this window shuts, not saying they're going to go spend big, like or huge, like 100, 200 million pound players or that kind of shoot. They will give Eddie Howe what he needs.
Yeah. Liverpool too. If Liverpool are still struggling, they'll spend. They won't care about it.
I think
we've got too many players we need to sell before we're going to buy again. I think we're going to get nobody.
That's what Conte is saying.
Sorry, Arsenal on the other hand, I think if you got an injury to say Jesus, someone like that, I think they will spend in January.
Yeah. But I'm saying, if Newcastle, right, are still in the European positions come end of this year, right, and when January transfer window turns around, I think they'll go out and buy a few more players to strengthen up. That's how I see it. They will.
If they've got a chance to grab fourth by investing in January, they'll do it.
They will, yeah. Because and then don't forget, with the World Cup, right, you are putting out a stage for talents to be shown around the world. You guys, they might not pick up some well-known European player. They might go and pick up some Asian player or some African player, right, or some South American player, right, along the way, or some American player that shows some potential talent, right, to bring to their team, into the squad, right. But what I said, will Arsenal improve in January transfer window? We do not know. Will Spurs splash out the cash again? We will not know. But all I know is that at the moment now, we have our injury issues, right? And Mani said his thoughts, right? And Brian, any last words? All right, I know your last word.
So Christmas is coming, and
Yeah.
get your stocking fillers ready. And if, like me, you have fingers that are regularly doing this, and you need to soothe them and have some great hand sanitizer or toiletries, don't forget that Tottenham Hotspur have announced they've renewed their contract with Molton Brown as the official club toiletries. And as always, Levy out.
And Coover.
Yeah, if it's going wrong, just keep sacking everybody. Big up Daniel Levy.
Levy out. I can't
Before we end the stream, right? Let's give a big thumbs up to all the guys in the chats who've been following. Elvin Cheng, we got the Elvin Cheng, right? And Elvin Cheng says that Newcastle's defense is great now. Emerald keeps form, a huge threat. Eva Man has been on, a big support from Hong Kong, right? Who else do we have? Of course, Brian Daigle Coover is here with me. Chris Agamba, big up Chris Agamba, right? And let me see, Jamie just finished work, wasn't able to join. Amir was here for a while earlier. Amir, big up Amir, right? We'll catch up with you next time. And of course, Bobby K. Bobby K, hope you've done your X-ray and everything's okay, right? But guys, thanks for being on, right? We can continue to chat in the back room. It's been a 2-hour stream. And,
let me just answer your question, by the way, Eugene. We are playing Manchester City on the 26th of April at the Etihad, and the
26th April.
Game, yeah, that's at the Etihad, and the home game, which has been postponed, probably will take place after the World Cup, because I don't believe there's any space before the tournament in which we can fit that. So, yeah,
okay, but okay, that means the game most probably be somewhere between the 26th. Or for all you know, it might end up somewhere in May, right?
It could.
Yeah, depending on where you guys are standing at the time. If you guys are still fighting or trying to chase M City, or M City is trying to chase you guys, it'll end up in May. But guys, thanks for being on. We'll catch up with someone in the back room while I do say bye-bye. And leave you out.